Jay here for Stretford Paddock. It's deadline day, so who better to speak to than Dharmesh Sheth from Sky Sports? He's going to be chatting to us for a one-on-one interview, quick one-on-one interview for Manchester United's transfer business on deadline day. Dharmesh, it's good to chat to you. I usually speak to Joe, so it's good for me and you to finally have a chat. It's been a little while. How are you keeping?
I'm good. It's better than last January, let's put it that way. But with regard to United, as we'll soon find out, I'm still dubious about whether there will be incomings. But look, never say never.
Okay, we'll get into all that in a minute. And if you've not done so already, mate, you know where to find Dharmesh. I don't tell you, I don't need to signpost you to Sky Sports. You know where to find it, but make sure you're subscribing to the channel. One thing we do know, Marcus Rashford has gone to Aston Villa. We know that. We saw it. It was announced yesterday. That's a done deal until the end of the season. Just before we move on to incomings and other outgoings, just tell us a little bit about the nature of that deal, how it sort of breaks down.
Yeah, I mean, it was the one that dominated the agenda, not just for Manchester United, but throughout this transfer window. From the start of it, 2 weeks before even the window opened, he's done that interview saying he needs a new challenge. And when that happened, I actually thought that very near the start of the window, a deal would be sorted, because to do an interview like that, you must have had something ready to go. Clearly there wasn't, because of the finances involved. AC Milan came and went. They had this non-EU player rule where they could only sign one player from either the UK or Albania. Because they couldn't do the finances for Rashford, they went for Kyle Walker. So that became impossible. Borussia Dortmund definitely were interested, but finances simply weren't working. He wanted to go to Barcelona, but if you're looking at financial problems with clubs, Barcelona will probably be top of that list. They had to create so much salary space to even contemplate doing a deal for Rashford. And then late in the window, and this happened really, really quickly, as is Aston Villa's way, actually, that they tend to keep things under the radar and then just complete deals really, really quickly. Their interest emerged, and within a day or two of their interest emerging, the deal was done. It is a loan until the end of the season, and there is an option to buy. We think that the option price is around £40 million. Our colleagues in Sky in Italy are reporting that it's an initial £38 million plus £7 million in performance-related add-ons. So the option price could go as high as £45 million. With regard to the loan itself, Villa will pay 75% of Rashford's wages. That could go up to 90% of Rashford's wages, depending on Rashford's performances and Villa's performances. It's a similar deal that they did for Anthony, who went to Real Betis, and significantly Jadon Sancho last January to Borussia Dortmund, when they actually ended up making a profit on Jadon Sancho's wages. Such was his performance and Borussia Dortmund's run to the Champions League final. So it feels like, because they've attached that option, that he may have kicked his last ball for Manchester United, which, when you take a step back for all the things that have gone wrong for Marcus Rashford on and off the pitch in the last 18 months to 2 years, it is still quite a sad day, I think, if you're a United fan.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, but that, whether it is the end, but you've answered that. It looks like it, we won't see him play for Manchester United again. I did feel that with the way things have gone with Ruben Amorim and the comments we've seen in the press conferences, and the fact he wasn't even making the squad. It just doesn't look like there's a way forward with that. But we are losing an attacker. Manchester United are losing someone who, okay, he's not been playing under Ruben Amorim, but even though he's not been playing, he's still scored, I think, one of the most amount of goals in the Premier League under Ruben Amorim. I know it's only 3, but he's still scored some goals for Manchester United, and we are desperately short up front. Do you see Manchester United bringing in any other attackers today? Because we know the issues we've got. We saw against in the game at the weekend where the manager he didn't even play against Palace. Sorry, he didn't even play any strikers. Kobbie Mainoo was like the furthest forward up the pitch. We're in dire straits. Do you see Manchester United bringing any attackers in?
I mean, you could have looked at that in 2 ways. Was that he doesn't have any faith at the moment with his young strikers in Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund, or was it a thinly veiled message to the board to say, look, we need someone to come in one of the forward positions? He publicly denied that was the case. He just said, look, this is the way that we felt tactically we wanted to approach the game. it's clear that throughout this transfer window, Manchester United have been looking at the forward department and to try and strengthen in that position, because he sees the inexperience of players like Zirkzee and the youth of Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund, and wants to help them, wants to give them a bit of support. It's looking at the moment increasingly unlikely. And look, I'm not copying out here, but you can never say never in a transfer window, because we know that United have been in the market to try and bring someone in. But it's getting late now. And the later it gets, the more unlikely it is going to be that United will recruit in that area. There have been a whole host of options that United have looked at in the past 3 or 4 weeks. And they seem, I'm sure we'll go through them individually, to have come, discussed, and then gone.
Yeah, I mean, it is worrying. I'm not going to lie to you, and it is a bit deflating. But you know, this is where we're at now in terms of players we've been linked with. There's been a couple. The big one that was sort of doing the rounds over the last week or so, certainly the last 48 hours, was Mathys Tel. I was watching you guys on Sky this morning. It doesn't feel like there's much happening there. What's the latest, the very latest update on that? Is that deal just dead in the water?
Well, one thing I would say generally on transfers, I think the feeling at United is they don't want to make the same mistakes that they've made in the past in respect to just bringing someone in because they want to bring someone in. For example, now, I think more often than not, they want to bring in their first choice targets. And if they don't get the first choice target in a particular window, they won't necessarily in the same window try and get a second or third choice target if they still believe the first choice target may be available maybe in the summer, when most clubs plan ahead for. It's the summer when they want to do their business. January tends to be a reactive window for most clubs. And if there's a lot of injuries and maybe departures, which we have seen, and people will say, well, United must react now because they've allowed Marcus Rashford to go. With regard to Mathys Tel, yes, there was an interest. Yes, there was talks between Manchester United and Bayern Munich. But the feeling is that Bayern Munich definitely wanted to do a permanent deal, or at least attach an obligation to a loan. Now, if United don't see Tel as, at the moment, their long-term target, then they were probably thinking we can try and do a loan with an option and then decide in the summer whether we actually want to sign him. Whereas I think Bayern Munich wanted something a little more concrete, and they did get something more concrete with Tottenham. They'd agreed a deal of £50 million, and it was down to the player to decide whether he wanted to go or not. And he decided against that deal. So they're probably using that as what they would require in a deal for Mathys Tel in this transfer window. So increasingly likely now, things obviously can change, that Tel we may remain at Bayern Munich for at least this window and then be reassessed in the summer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't know a lot about Tel. He looks like a very useful player, but he feels like one for the future rather than one that's going to come in to Manchester United in January and have an immediate impact, especially when you sort of experience and goals. I don't know if he's that guy right now. I mean, long term, certainly he could be. Another player that was being sort of mooted as a potential United signing was Christopher Nkunku from Chelsea. Been linked with him. Again, seems to have gone a bit cold there. Any update, any movement there, or is that just one that was sort of, a fleeting interest?
You said it, cold. That's the wording, exact wording that I was given last night with regard to Christopher Nkunku and Aston Villa's Leon Bailey as well. He was an option for Manchester United, we think, in the forward area. But again, the Nkunku one, I mean, clubs don't do swap deals or anything like that, but there was all this talk about maybe Chelsea buying Garnacho and then smoothing the way for Manchester United to be able to do a loan deal for Christopher Nkunku. It was never going to be a permanent. Manchester United just wouldn't have had the money for that kind of deal, even though they would have got money in for Garnacho. I think they would have wanted to just do a couple of loans in this transfer window as opposed to spending a lot of money and then not being able to do that and really go for it in the summer. With regard to Leon Bailey, again, people were putting 2 and 2 together and thinking, right, it would smooth the way if Rashford goes to Aston Villa, for Leon Bailey to come to Manchester United. As it stands, that one looks cool and doesn't look like that one's going to happen either. So there might be a couple of other options out there, but it feels like, well, as we record this with just a few hours of the window to go, it looks like United are probably going to refocus their energies for the summer. And if you think about what Ruben Amorim said when he joined United, he didn't want to take the job mid-season, probably for these reasons, and probably because he might have foreseen what was going to happen with results. I guess he probably didn't foresee it was going to be this bad. But with regard to trying to take over a team that he hasn't had really any say in, and it's only this January transfer window where he's trying to start putting a stamp on the kind of players he'd want to bring in. So Patrick Dorgu has come in from Lecce, which feels like a player who would fit the Amorim system. But I think you're going to see more of the players that Amorim and the board would want come the summer. And that's when it's easier to do business, because if you're trying to do permanent deals in January, I think selling clubs can effectively smell a bit of perceived desperation in a club trying to do permanent deals in January. Hence why United, as I said before, don't want to repeat mistakes that they've made in the past.
Yeah, I do hear that, and I don't want United to just go out and get anyone.
Yeah,
for the sake
I know
of
it feels
anyone.
underwhelming. If you, I know that, I know it would for you as a United fan, but you know what United fans have been critical of has been the recruitment in the past, when they have thought, right, let's go for this player. And I mean, I keep mentioning it on this podcast. The Frankie de Jong one is a massive case in point. You've got a situation where he's a great age, he's a fantastic player, and they spent the entire summer trying to get him, didn't end up getting him. And in the last week, they bring in Casemiro. They don't want to do deals like this anymore, because look what they're trying to do. Casemiro doesn't play for United much anymore. They're trying to sell him. They're not going to get the 60, 70 million pounds that they spent on him. So that's what they want to avoid, because now they're in a situation where a club as big as Manchester United, for all the revenue that they bring in to a football club, are looking over their shoulder for PSR reasons. And talking about, the absolutely what fans would think this cannot happen. Garnacho and Mainu. There was talk of, right, there's a possibility these guys could be sold because they represent pure profit. How can United have found themselves in a position like that? Hence why, as much as it might feel underwhelming in a January window, if they get the business right in the summer, I think the fans will actually look back on it and think, well, it's probably best they didn't spend big money in January, because it's always an immediacy thing, isn't it? And it comes off the back of a bad result as well. And suddenly everyone's like, they've got to bring someone in. Look what's happened at Old Trafford yesterday. Didn't score any goals. They haven't got anyone to score any goals. What's going on? So I think United need to take that step back sometimes and just think what is going to be best for the club and the long-term future of this club. They can't think short-term anymore.
No, I do get that. I do agree. I see the point. We've had these issues, haven't we? We've brought in short-term signings. Yeah, I do. As a fan, though,
Yes, I get it.
I was there yesterday at Old Trafford. If I had hair, I'd have been tearing it out. It was just another frustrating performance. And you're like, we need some players to fix this. Now, I know they announced Aiden Heaven and Dorgu before the game, and it was great to see young, talented defenders coming in, but we know what issues we've got. I'm going to get to the summer in a sec. I just want to ask you quickly about outgoings. You mentioned there about Alejandro Garnacho. There was reports, rumours, talk of him going to Chelsea or maybe to Napoli. I keep using the word cold. It does feel like it'd be very unlikely if we saw Alejandro Garnacho leave Manchester United in the next sort of 10 hours or whatever it is, or 12 hours. Do you see anyone significant? When I say significant, I mean, other than sort of some of the young players we've seen go on, Ethan Williams or whoever, going out on loan. Do you see anyone, any of the first team squad moving on this window?
What should be said here, that United have been in that position throughout this window, that for incomings, there will probably have had to have been outgoings. Now, the Rashford departure would suggest to me that they could possibly do a loan for a forward, if they can find the right forward. If Mathys Tel was the player that they wanted, and they wanted to bring him on loan, it requires another party to agree to that. And for as we know, Bayern just want that to be a permanent deal or an obligation to be attached to that loan. Let's see if United can see if there's another option just to do on a loan deal. Now, the other player that we spoke about in this transfer window was Tyrell Malacia. And throughout this window, we've said that United would be prepared to allow him to go if they brought someone else in. Now, Dorgu has come in. They're still, we think, listening to offers for Malacia, probably for a loan until the summer. Real Betis had made inquiries throughout this transfer window. They could still be interested in him on deadline day to see if they can get a good deal. Benfica, that one came late in the window. That one looks like it's cooled now. We think that those talks have broken down between United and Benfica. And that was more to do with United because United had set out their conditions to Benfica. Benfica didn't meet those conditions. And it appears that United didn't want to compromise on those conditions. So they decided, no, that deal would not be good for us. We will look at other options for Malacia. Because what they want to do, he's been out for 18 months. He's only recently come back. He's played a few times under Ruben Amorim since he's made his return from injury. But now with Dorgu there and with Luke Shaw back in training, let's see if he can stay fit, by the way, they would like to see Malacia get regular first-team football. It's unlikely to come at United, but if he can go away and they can get a deal done in the last few hours and he plays regularly until the end of the season, then it puts United in a better position come the summer because he'll still have a year left on his contract. United will have an option for a further 12 months. He can either be a player that can be used by Ruben Amorim or he could be sold with an enhanced market value because he would have played regular first-team football throughout for the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. It's a shame what's happened with Malacia in terms of the injury and the difficult time he had. And if he does get a move, I hope he sort of gets playing football regularly because he's a likable lad, and it is a pity. You mentioned about the summer window. Can we expect Manchester United to have a busy summer window? Because you can see the issues on the pitch. You can see the fact when he's strengthening. Also, as you've mentioned as well, Ruben Amorim wanting certain types of players, wanting players in certain positions who can play his style of football that he probably hasn't got in the current squad. Do you think Ineos are going to be able to back him in the way that he probably wants in the summer?
I mean, they want to. I mean, there's still going to be this issue that United will have to sell. We've seen it in this transfer window. They're in that financial predicament where it's going to need, it can't just be a case of just going out and splashing loads of money and not getting rid of any of those players. It feels like Amorim, because he came in the middle of the season, to me, he's played a bit of a blinder with regard to how he's approached it with the press and with the club, in that he's actually put it back on the club. You've employed me because I play a back three, because I was successful at Sporting Lisbon. There's no point me coming into Manchester United and playing a back four to get short-term results. That's not going to work for me. It's effectively challenging them to say, if that's not for you, then don't worry. If you want to play four at the back and you feel the results are so bad, I can go, no problem at all. But they want to back him. If he's successful playing three at the back, that's what Manchester United have hired him for. So they've got to back him with that formation. Now, they clearly will have to try and generate funds. They're trying to do that in this transfer window. They will try and do it in the summer as well before they go into the market. But they are looking to the future as well. They're trying to get away from a real short-term approach and just for gains really, really quickly. They want United to be sustainable and be challenging on the pitch, not just for the next season, but for the 3, 4, 5 seasons after that. And they're already looking at players for the summer. One of them is a player that Ruben Amorim knows really, really well, a very young player. I've been hearing him described as a generational talent, Giovanni Quenda from Sporting Lisbon. And Amorim actually gave him his debut at Sporting earlier on this season. He's a winger, and I guess he can fit into that system by playing in that wing-back position, legs, pace, and a player that has been attracting a lot of interest from a number of clubs a number of big clubs in Europe. United will hope that the Amorim factor will convince him to come to Old Trafford, but that is definitely one that they'll be working on. The other one is the one that's been bandied around a lot. There's clearly going to be an interest in him, and that's Victor Gyokeres. Again, he would cost big money, but you would think that that would be the kind of player that could come straight into the team and play in the first team and help out the likes of Xerxes and Rasmus Højlund, who are clearly much younger and much less experienced than someone like Gyokeres, and clearly Amorim knows well. But you remember when Amorim joined, he did say in his first news conference, I will not be signing any players from Sporting in the January transfer window. But he didn't say that he wouldn't be signing any players from Sporting in the summer transfer window. He said he'd leave them alone for this season. But come the summer, there will be players that he will be interested in. So it's going to be a very, very busy summer, I predict. But it's not just going to be a case of United bringing loads of players in. They're going to have to release a few as well. And what I would say as well, when you compare United to all these other clubs who are near the top of the league, the established ones like Liverpool, City to a certain extent, Arsenal, Manchester United, for me, they have to hit the bullseye with every single transfer now. They cannot afford any mistakes. The likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, if they sign a player and it doesn't quite work out, they can afford to do that because it feels like what they will be recruiting would be to improve their squad. United feel like they need to bring in players that need to go straight into the first team, let alone strengthening the squad.
Yeah, definitely. Just quickly before I let you go, do you think it's feasible that he could go to Sporting and bring in 2 players in the summer? Do you think that he could do like a double swoop, if you will, for Quenda and Gyokeres? Do you think
there's definitely interest in both? Yeah. It's just going to be, if you're looking at both of those players, a combined fee would probably be around £100 million.
Yeah.
United haven't got that. So they're going to have to be really clever in this market. They're trying to be clever in January and then again in the summer. And what is happening now is he's effectively auditioning the players that he's got at his disposal just now. And some players that we would have thought actually they do fit into his system might not. And some players who you would think, well, they're gone come the summer, they might actually end up staying because Amorim will have seen something, right? We can see something with this player and he can play a role in this system. Who would have thought when Amad Diallo joined United, he went on a few loans. I mean, not many people were expecting him to have a longer term future at United. People thought, right, they could make a bit of money on Amad Diallo because he can go on loan and increase his market value. Now, look, he's suddenly one of the mainstays in that squad, in that team, and he's been rewarded with a new long-term contract. So these things can happen. So it all depends on how these players perform until the end of the season. That will dictate whether they've got a future at the club or not.
Well, hopefully they'll perform a lot better than they did at the weekend, to be honest with you, because otherwise he's going to have his work cut out. Dharmesh, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. I hope you managed to get a bit of a break during the course today. I know it's a bit hectic for you, non-stop.
Tenerife Wednesday, Jay.
Oh, nicely
Me
done.
and my golf
nicely
clubs.
Done. Oh, you've earned that. We'll be watching you today and seeing if there are any updates. Hopefully there'll be a bit of movement, but always great chatting to you, Dharmesh, and all the best today. And yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, there might be something happening at Manchester United, but we'll see. That's been Dharmesh Sheth from Sky Sports. I'm Jay Motty. This has been a Stretford Paddock one-on-one interview. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.